Hello, and welcome to Texas, the series where I review and analyze each installment in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre saga. In this episode, we take on Texas Chainsaw 3D, the final installment so far in the, up until this point, epic Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. So yeah, we finally made it. We're at the last one as of now. They are making more, but we're at the last one as of this series in the very epic Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. So the really interesting and cool thing about this installment, and the reason why I kind of like it, is it's an actual sequel. It's an actual sequel. It expands on the concepts of the original. It takes the series in a new direction. It's not the same story as the original. It's its own thing. It's telling a brand new story, but in the same universe as the series, and it expands on the mythology of the world. It's a sequel. It's an actual sequel. It never tries to be a remake. It never redoes the same scenes all over again. It doesn't remake any of the same moments from the original. No, it's a sequel. It's an actual, I can't believe it, sequel. After pretend sequel after pretend sequel that all became remakes, after a prequel that somehow morphed into a remake, we finally have, after all this time, a proper sequel that actually tries to have a new story. That is, wow. So either like it or hate it, this one actually decided to bring something new to the table. And for that, I really admire this film. I just really admire that. So what's the plot? This one actually has a new plot. The plot is our main character, Heather, finds out that a relative of hers has passed away. One that she never even knew that she had. And she is actually a relative of the Sawyer family, the Campbells from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And she never knew it. So she stops by her now dead's relative home to pick up on her inheritance. And Leatherface just happens to be there and just happens to still be breathing and out for more blood. Now, I gotta say, this movie is weird. Now, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's no stranger to weird elements, but this is really something new. This is the only movie that I've seen where it feels like the movie was made for fans of the original film that never saw the original film. Like, this movie has tons of references to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They recreate the house from the original, for crying out loud. But there's so many things that don't make any sense if you've seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Heather is really young. She's so young that for the plot of this film to make sense, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre would have had to happen in the late 80s, not in the 70s. But instead, right in the original, it takes place like in 1973. That's like part of the plot. So if you've seen the original, you know this movie doesn't really make any sense. Also, this movie does a recap of the original right in the first couple minutes, and it shows off all these new Campbells that weren't in the original film. So once again, you know that this isn't it doesn't line up. So the only way you would not see these glaring plot holes is if you never saw the original. And if that's the case, why does this have so many nods and references to the original? It's so weird and perplexing. Like, the timeline of this just makes no sense. And you can really only enjoy it if you try really hard to ignore it. There's a lot of low plot holes throughout this movie like that. So I've seen some people just not be able to get past that, and that's actually pretty understandable. Another thing about this movie is Leatherface, as you've all noted by now, Leatherface is done extremely differently in all of the movies. This one tries to have its cake and eat it too. In this one, Leatherface is treated as a sympathetic character that might not be aware of his actions, but he still is a silent, cold-blooded killer type kind of like Jason Voorhees. So they're going for the sympathetic, he's animalistic, doesn't understand his actions like the original, but they're also going for the silent anti-hero Jason Voorhees style from Part 3. And they try to do both at the same time. I don't really think the two different methods work well together, and it's kind of a miss on both fronts. But it's still interesting, some of the ideas that they pull out of it. I do like all the creative ideas that went into this. I do really like the ending. Big spoilers for the ending. But in the ending, Heather and Leatherface kind of join sides, and Leatherface starts to, in essence, work for her. I actually really like this concept, because Leatherface was an animal. He was pretty much a dog used by the original family to do what they wanted. In this, now a new owner has taken hold of him, and now he has to do what she wants. And she's pulling the strings. It's really interesting to see this guy be taken by someone new and be manipulated by that other person and used almost like a living weapon. I really like that concept. And I think if there was a movie that built on that concept, you'd get something really interesting. But this one didn't make enough money, so they're going to reboot things again. So that kind of sucks. But still a really interesting concept. I've heard a lot of people complain about the ending. I think they thought it was a cool ending, just not well executed enough. And I can kind of agree there. I think the ending's really cool, but there is some one-liners in the ending that are a bit cheesy, like "do your thing, cuz." But to be honest, there's a lot of one-liners in this that are a bit cheesy. The script for this was a bit weak. It might have had a lot of good ideas. I think it's a really solid script because it has a lot of good ideas, but it had some really cheesy lines. Very cheesy lines here and there. It does disappoint me that the film doesn't make a lot of sense plot-wise. It almost feels like they hired the main actress because of her age, that she was young and a typical horror movie heroine. But they should have gone with someone older, someone that would have actually fit plot-wise, like someone in their 40s, someone that would have fit timeline-wise. I think that would have worked a lot better. She still does an admirable job, though. I still like her. I still like all the characters in this. They're a lot better than the heroes from the beginning, I can tell you that much. They are much improved. And Leatherface, even though he's not done perfectly, he's still done way better in this than he was in the beginning. And the gore is also done way better than it was in the beginning. This is about as gory as Texas Chainsaw Massacre the beginning, only in this, it doesn't just shove the camera in the gore and hope you get grossed out. In this, it does stylize it a bit and show it in a bit of a cool way and handles it quite a bit better. There are a lot of blood is CGI, but I don't mind CGI blood in a few cases because it does allow you to stylize things a bit more, and I think this kind of does that, so I didn't really mind in this case, though I have heard people complain about that too. So I guess you could argue that this is a mixed bag. Every time I say something good, I mention something bad. I say good gore, but I say it's CGI. I say good script, but it's got corny lines. Every time I say something good, there's something bad. But overall, I think this movie has to be admired because it has a really smart idea for ending. The whole idea of someone else taking the reins of Leatherface and manipulating him and using him as a weapon. That's really, really freaking interesting. And I love the fact that it's a proper freaking sequel. I love that. But it does have its flaws. Leatherface isn't done perfectly. The gore has some CGI. Some one-liners are corny. The plot line doesn't really make much sense when you think about it for more than 10 minutes. So if I gotta rate this one, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because I just really enjoy it. It's just a really enjoyable movie. And it's a slasher movie. It actually feels like a slasher movie, like almost like Friday the 13th. All the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, they're not really slasher horrors. They're kind of their own thing. And this is more of a upbeat, blood-filled, typical slasher movie. It's almost like Friday the 13th meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it works surprisingly well. So I think this is more of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre for a mainstream audience. And you might think that's a bad thing, you might think that's a good thing, but that's what this really is. It's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre for a mainstream audience with a lot of smart ideas, executed not the best, but still having a very fun time, and still overall a very fun watch, and a perfect way to end the series so far. Will the next installment be good? I don't know, but I'm going to review that one when it eventually comes out, hopefully later this year, but still, no trailer. What's up with that? Well, I'm still hoping it'll be a blast. It's got a lot to live up to, that's for sure. I've had a lot of fun doing this. I hope you have too, and I hope you enjoyed your stay in Texas.